All right, so let's keep going with the chapter 3 material, but let's now look more at slope. Okay, so slope questions go from problem number 29 all the way through question number 33. Okay, so on problem number 29, you're asked to do the slope. It says find slope, and it gives you a graph. And the graph is this, has a point here and a point here. All right, so when you're doing that, your thought process should be that slope is just how you get from one point to the other. It's rise over run. So pick a starting point. Let's say I pick this as my starting point. Then just describe how to get to the other point from there. You'd have to go up 1, 2, 3, 4 units. So that's positive 4 because you went up 4. And then you have to go to the right 2 units. So the rise is positive 4 and the run is positive 2, and that turns out to be 2 when you simplify. So the slope of that line is 2. Some of you find the coordinates here of these points, and you can do that. That would work, but you're opening yourself up to making a mistake because you'd have to be sure these coordinates are correct. And that's not 0, 2, that's 2, 0. This one is 0, negative 4. So that is a place source of an error. And then when you plug into the formula, you'd have to be sure that you plugged in correctly. And a lot of times we get this in the wrong order. So if you did it correctly, got the ordered pairs right, and set up the formula correctly, and then simplified correctly, you'd eventually get there. Okay, but this is not recommended. Just do the counting. Just count to get your slope. How far up and over you need to go. But now when you get a problem like number 30 or number 31, where they want slope, the directions say find the slope, but they give you 2 points, then that's when you're going to definitely use the formula. And you'll have a formula sheet like you normally do. Okay, so what you'll do on those is go to your formula sheet if you need to, find the slope formula. That formula is really just trying to say the slope is rise over run. It's saying get the change in your y coordinates, put it over the change in your x coordinates. Okay, so when you come up here, the y coordinates would be 4 and 2. So you could do 4 minus 2, but if you do that, started with 4 and subtracted 2, then you have to start with 8 and subtract negative 5. 8 minus negative 5. Make sure the y's are on top. Y coordinates are on top. This is an x and a y. This is an x and a y. Make sure the y's are on top. Okay. And then make sure that the 4 and the 8 come from the same point, so you know that you wind up, are those from the same point? That means you subtracted in the same order. That's what I check to make sure I set it up right. Then be careful simplifying. If you have minus a negative, that's really positive. It's really plus right here, 13. So that would be 13. And then 4 minus 2 would just be 2. And you can't do much with that. That's your answer, 2/13. Okay. All right, let's try it again with this one. So we're going to subtract our y coordinates. And if we did that, we'd have to start here with the 2 and subtract the negative 2. But hey, this one turns out weird. Because on this one, we get a 0 on top, and then down here we get a positive 4. That means 0 divided by 4. You can do it on your calculator. It's not going to give you an error. This is not undefined. It's going to give you 0. That's your answer. Okay, what's going on? What made it be that is negative 2, 1 and 2, 1 mean the line we're talking about is horizontal. And see, that's the kind of line that has a slope of 0. You can walk on it, so it exists, but the slope will be 0. Okay. All right, then 32 was the one we did earlier. 32 said find the slope. And it gave you an equation that was in standard form. And so the strategy we used was to rearrange the equation so that y was on a side by itself. Because if we could get the equation to be in this form, that number in front of x would be our slope. So remember what we did. We subtracted 2x to get rid of that. We're left with negative 3y. Don't lose this negative here. Equals negative 2x minus 8. They can't go together. They're not like terms. Then this negative 3 we can divide by. Get that out of the way. Divide by negative 3. Oops, let me do it individually everywhere. Then this becomes y equals negative divided by negative is positive 2/3 x. Negative divided negative is positive 8/3. Okay. And we did all that work because now we can just pull out the coefficient of x, the number in front of the x term. That's your slope, not the x with it, just the 2/3. Okay. So that's what we did for 32, and that's what we need to be able to do 33. 33 is asking you, are the lines parallel? Are they perpendicular? Or neither? Okay. Parallel and perpendicular are kind of special. For parallel, you need to have the same slope. That's the m, okay? And then different y-intercepts. For perpendicular, slopes are negative reciprocals. Examples work best on that. So if one has a slope of negative 1/2, the other is going to have a slope of positive 2. You have to flip it over and take the opposite. If one of them is 3, the other would be negative 3. The other would be positive 1/3. If one is 5/2, the other would have to be negative 2/5. Okay, and if one is 0, the other would be undefined. Okay. All right, and if they're not negative reciprocals of one another or the same, then you've got the neither case. See, parallels like this, perpendiculars like that, and neither is going to be things that intersect, but maybe not at right angles. All right. Starting to get a little glitchy here. I think I'm running out of space. All right, so let's take a look then. So we have the equation 2x plus 3y equals 9. We have the equation 2y equals 3x minus 8. So what we need to do on both of these, each of these, is get the y by itself so we can easily identify slope. So it's really this skill, rearranging the equation. It's really that chapter 2 formula skill that we got to do twice. So I'm going to subtract 2x. Let me write this one to the right instead of below. So that was 2y equals 3x minus 8. And on each of them, I'm going to solve for y eventually. So I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. I get 3y equals negative 2x plus 9. Divide by 3 everywhere. I get y equals negative divided by positive is negative 2/3 x. 9 divided by 3 is 3. What I'm really trying to pay attention to, is the slope. That right there. All right, now I'm going to come over here, and this one's a little further along. All I got to do to finish it up is divide by 2 everywhere. So then I get y equals positive 3/2 x minus 4. Okay. Now, this one has a slope of negative 2/3. This one has a slope of positive 3/2. Notice they are flipped over and opposites. That makes them So perpendicular. The lines must have been perpendicular. Okay, because they are opposite reciprocals. All right, so that's the section of the final exam review dealing with just the slope.